This podcast is sponsored by the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is a catalyst for growth and prosperity and is here to protect and promote business, inspire innovation, cultivate communities, and influence action. Learn more at fmwfchamber.com.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Inforum Business Beat podcast. This is your host, Thomas Evanella. I'm here to run down the latest business news for you. Plus, after that, I'll be chatting with Inforum digital producer Kris Kerzman to share an update on the Moorhead Center Mall. Let's get to it. Downtown Fargo's 400 building is currently up for sale. The former Powers Hotel is one of 3 buildings in North Dakota included in the sale listing. The others are located in Grand Forks and Devil's Lake. Combined, the 3 have 121 residential units and are all Section 8 communities eligible for federal housing assistance. The 400 building is 10,000 square feet of space and was constructed in 1914. It has 41 units of affordable apartments. Chris Brungart, CEO of the Fargo Housing and Redevelopment Authority, told the Forum his organization was approached about buying the property weeks ago. Brungart said the sellers were moving faster than the Housing Authority could, however. Guitar Center opened at the West Acres Shopping Center Thursday, November 17th. Guitar Center occupies over 11,000 square feet inside the former Best Buy store to the southeast of the mall's central building. The store will sell, rent, and repair musical instruments and offer lessons. Men's clothing boutique Druthers plans to close in the near future. The closing was announced via the business's Facebook page on Tuesday, November 8th. Store owner Holly Kraft said that while the brick-and-mortar store will close, she plans to continue running an online-only store and pop-up events in 2023. Kraft did not say when the current store would close, however she wrote on Facebook that store credit and gift cards would be honored until December 23rd. Reporter Tammy Swift recently highlighted TC Foods, a Fergus Falls bean-to-bar chocolatier which has made internationally recognized chocolates. Josh and Kristen Mohagan started the business 9 years ago as a small business. Now, TC Foods chocolates are sold at grocery stores across the country. The company recently moved into a 7,000 square foot factory in Fergus Falls, where workers take raw cacao beans from around the world and turn them into chocolate bars. To date, TC Foods is still Minnesota's only bean-to-bar chocolatier. The company's crowning achievement came in 2021, when their golden milk chocolate placed second among North and South American entrants at the International Chocolate Awards. The Mohagans don't plan on stopping there either. While they are proud of their achievements, the couple plans to transform TC Foods into the world's best bean-to-bar chocolate by 2027. A new restaurant spotlighting Indian and Nepali food will soon open in downtown Fargo. Momos and More is the fulfillment of a marital dream for husband and wife duo Brett and Prakash Hadawai Pokhrel. The restaurant will dish up favorites from Prakash's home country of Nepal. The menu will include momos with 3 different fillings: chicken tikka masala, chai tea, mango lassi, and pakora, which are fried vegetables. Momos and More will move into 530 6th Street North, the former location of Cafe Aladdin and Teddy's Chicago-style cuisine. An opening date has not been set, but Prakash said the couple hopes to open the restaurant in the coming weeks.
Stay connected to your community and save. Just 99 cents a month gets you 3 months of unlimited access to Inform.com. Visit Inform.com/subscribe and get your first 3 months of news for only 99 cents a month.
Up next, I'm going to turn hosting duties over to Inforum digital producer Kris Kerzman. Kris, himself a self-described Moorhead townie, is here to help me discuss my recent story on renovation plans at the Moorhead Center Mall.
Hey there, Thomas. How's it going?
I'm good. Kris, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So we are talking about your latest story, sort of taking a status check on the Moorhead Center Mall and that revitalization effort happening in downtown Moorhead there. So tell us, what's the latest?
So I think it's good to get a little bit of the background here. So if we're really going back to the beginning, all of this started a few years ago when a development group started to acquire the properties on the mall. Roars is the master developer of that group, but it's also worth noting that that includes familiar names like JLG Architects, Stantec, Downtown Moorhead Inc., and the city itself. So obviously people have been wondering about the fate of the mall for a long time. The first step in all of this was to begin acquiring the mall property, and Roars wanted to get to 70% before they started to really execute their vision. Now, to date, Roars owns all but 6 units of the mall property, so that's 94 to 96% of the land itself. So all that in mind, Roars and their group has the vast majority of the mall's land. They unveiled their vision for the site back in August of this past year. That included renderings of what could be done there. Obviously, renderings are just that. They're renderings. Nothing in that picture is finalized per se. But back in August, we were waiting on one key piece here, and that was the 0.5% sales tax increase that was on the ballot in Moorhead. That sales tax increase passed, I believe it was 63 or 64%. So that sales tax increase is going to stay in place for 22 years, and it's going to finance a library and community center on the site. But again, the library and the community center are really the only two concrete pieces that we have there at the moment. And again, I would just caution that the renderings are just that. They're renderings. And things could change quite a bit as this progresses, but that's sort of the backstory, and that's where we are right now.
You went into the Moorhead Center Mall and talked to a few of the remaining tenants there. What's their sentiment? How are they feeling?
So the common thread among all of the remaining mall tenants is that they knew that this was coming. They know that their time is going to be up sometime soon. But the biggest question is when. So there isn't a specific timeline really for any of this. We know that the mall is most likely going to be demolished in favor of this new development, but it's very difficult for these businesses to make plans if they don't know when they need to be out or how soon any of this is going to happen. But that wasn't the only concern that some of the mall tenants shared with us. Some were also upset that the mall wasn't just going to be renovated or freshened up, because we obviously know the mall itself is pretty dated at the moment. I think that's a pretty diplomatic way of putting it. So they kind of hoped that maybe the mall could just be revitalized itself, freshened up, maybe new corridors or skylights or anything like that to just improve the mall itself. And others, too, that we spoke to were lifelong Moorhead residents, and they want to see the city improve, but they're also conflicted that it comes at the expense of their business's current location. And one last common note that we got was that they had hoped that there would have been more of an emphasis on bringing new businesses into the mall. The mall is now just essentially an empty shell of what it once was. No one wants to move in because people see the writing on the walls. But the business owners, again, knew that this was coming. And especially one of the things that really set this in motion was when Herberger's closed. That was obviously the big anchor store in the mall. And it's the fact that Herberger's closed and then nothing came in to replace it that really sealed the deal. So, I mean, the long story short is that mall tenants knew that this was going to happen, but they really just, the biggest thing they want to know now is when.
I think you sort of touched on this a little bit about what the timeline is. It sounds like it's we're still a little bit squishy in terms of timeline, that things aren't so set in stone quite yet.
Right. The timeline is where all of this starts to get really fuzzy. And like I said, kind of off the top, the library and the community center, that is assured that's going to happen. The 0.5-cent sales tax increase was passed. That is definitely on the horizon. But the mall tenants don't have a good handle on what happens next. Obviously, there's a lot of rumors and hearsay about like what demolition timelines could be. Back in August, when Roars unveiled this plan alongside the city, they said that the demolition could start as soon as next fall, but there was also a possibility that businesses could stay in place for 2 or 3 years, just depending upon how the phases of the demolition occurred. So that alone kind of gives you an indication that even when this was first unveiled, there was some squishiness, I believe was the term you used. But then we fast forward a couple months to October. CEO of Roars, Jim Roars himself, met with the Clay County Commission, and this again was before the election took place. He told the commission at that time that it could be 5 years after the demolition is completed that this final vision could be realized. So taking all of that in mind, my informed speculative guess on when this would be done would be the end of this decade or the early 2030s. And there are a lot of people who need to get behind this. The economy is currently uncertain. It's not It's very expensive to build things at the moment, and there are no doubt other unforeseen hurdles that will probably pop up.
Wow, when you put it that way. uh, one little thing maybe to sort of help me sort of at least conceptualize what the process is moving forward here. What has Roars said in terms of, I guess, larger scale, what they see the space doing? I'm assuming perhaps some sort of mix of residential and commercial properties. Do they want to see like a denser retail type of focus like we have with the mall? What have they tipped off in terms of what they're thinking big picture for this area?
So some of the basic highlights we have here, it's a 16-acre site. Roars, Downtown Moorhead Inc., all the partners involved here, they're foreseeing about 1,200 units of living spaces planned in the site. Public green spaces as well. Obviously, the riverfront is a big appeal here. So those would be two of the highlights. We could also see hotels, retail spaces like you said, and those would probably be the primary big picture items we would see. It would be mixed-use residences, be that condos or apartments, hotel spaces, ground level retail spaces. And one interesting thing that they did mention as well would be a lot of underground parking. They said that they don't want parking to be clogging up a lot of this area. It's not all that big of a space when you think about it. So they're going to be putting a lot of parking underground rather than going with the above level surface lots or parking garages above level.
So what seems to be the next step for this process?
So the next step really would be tearing down the mall. And there are a few ways that could happen. They could work from the center out. They could work from west to east, or they could move from east to west. We don't know for sure which way they're going to go about doing that. And then from the business perspective here, the businesses remaining in the mall, they need to start thinking long-term about what they want their future to be. I suspect that some may want to move out on their own terms rather than wait until they're told to leave, essentially. And now some of those may stay in Moorhead. They may jump across the river and go into Fargo or West Fargo. Either way, the demolition is the next big piece we have here. And that is going to happen eventually because, again, we have a library and community center to build. So again, it's a question of, do businesses want the timeline dictated to them, or do they want to set their own course and leave whenever their current leases are expired?
Has the city been, or the developer here, have they been in contact with these businesses? Are they working with them at all to sort of ease this transition?
We've gotten mixed feedback on the contact between Roars, the city, all the developers here, and the existing businesses. Some have said they'd like to see more communication. Others said that working with Roars has been very positive. They don't blame Roars for the state of the mall. But again, so like I said, it's very mixed feedback. Roars has been holding, from what I gather, informational meetings with the current mall tenants to just bring them up to speed on what's going on. So there has been some communication. Some businesses have maybe communicated with Roars more than others, be that over email, phone calls, in-person meetings, what have you. But Roars is keeping people up to speed, and I think the city is obviously not going to want to see businesses move out. I think the city is going to do their best to make sure that the businesses in the mall stay somewhere in Moorhead. I don't think it'd be a very good look for the city if these businesses, like I said, jumped across the river.
So prior to us hopping on here, Thomas, I'm a Moorhead resident, and a lot of close acquaintances of mine are also Moorhead residents and have lived in Moorhead for years and years. The term I like to use is townies. Delightful folks who have called Moorhead home their entire lives and are now own homes, have kids in school, that kind of thing. And there's certainly a sense of, boy, I think we've heard this kind of tune before in terms of Moorhead's revitalization efforts downtown. There's some apprehension. There's still, I would argue, a lot of lingering apprehension over the closing of Ralph's, which was part of a revitalization project, and ironically is now the subject of an exhibition at the Moorhead Center. And now the Moorhead Center Mall, which is this other example of the city's efforts to revitalize that downtown core. And now, not that long later, it's sort of outlived its usefulness. That being said, everybody I talked to still had a sense of what I would call guarded optimism. That even though things are still kind of up in the air, it's still, something needs to happen. Something needs to happen there. So I suppose that doesn't really translate much into a question, but maybe how does that match up with other things you've heard? Maybe the sentiments from other either residents or business owners in the area.
Yes. So this is kind of the lingering piece over all of this is we have heard this story before with Moorhead, and Moorhead residents have gone through this kind of thing before. We've heard a lot of proposals about what to do with the mall. There are a couple of reasons why I think this is different than things that we've seen in the past. And my roots, I don't live in Moorhead, and my roots in Moorhead don't trace as far back as yours, Kris. So you may have more institutional knowledge to draw on than I do here. But there are a few reasons why I think we're going to see a different story this time around. And the start of that is obviously the library and the community center. Those are concrete plans. That is going to happen. So Moorhead, congratulations. You're getting a new library and community center. That is for sure. And the city is also highly motivated to see this project get off the ground. The current assessed value of the mall site is $20 million. The proposal that was unveiled in August would bring that assessed value to north of $250 million. So obviously that's a massive increase for the city's tax base. They really want to see that happen. Derek LaPointe, who is the president of Downtown Moorhead, Inc., said at that same October meeting that this plan isn't, quote, a pretty picture. That was the term he used. He said it's financially sound and that they can actually make a move on it this time. So overall, the way I see it is that there are a lot of private businesses and private parties, as well as the city itself, who has a vested interest in the success of this plan. And not the least of those being Roars, who now owns all of the land, or darn near all of the land on the mall. So they obviously want to see something happen here. And Roars has been going back and forth with the other prominent developers here in the area, being Enclave, Epic, you name it. They've been going back and forth with them on what they want to do on the site. Roars isn't going to build this all themselves. There are other developers who want a piece of this. And Jim Roars even said that it wouldn't be possible for them to build it all. And if they did, it would take forever. So with all of that in mind, I can certainly understand why Moorhead residents might have a bit of jaded perspective or guarded optimism, as you said. We've heard this story before. I do think it might be different this time around, but obviously there's a lot that needs to happen between now and then.
And that then being some years in the future, right? So
yes, I would say at least 5 years, probably a lot more than that.
Wow. Great. Well, we look forward to you sticking with this story, Thomas, and hopefully me and all my townie friends will come out happy in the end here.
I do hope so. I think everybody wants to see something positive happen with the mall. And even, like I said, some of the business owners in the mall, they want to see something good for Moorhead, even if it's at their expense. So I do hope this translates to what has been proposed.
All right. Thanks a lot, Thomas.
All right. Thank you, Kris. That's going to do it for this week's episode of the Inforum Business Beat podcast. This has been your host, Thomas Evanella. We'll be taking next week off for Thanksgiving, but stay on inforum.com/business for all the latest.